Hey, so I'm super excited. So, as a lot of you guys knew, I used to fly the Atom 80. It's the engine that I trained on. It's the engine that I've been the most comfortable with. But in the back of my mind, I've always wanted to upgrade to a Moster 185, and I finally pulled that trigger. So, a couple weeks ago, when I was flying with my friends, I got parked, which mainly means that no matter how fast I was going, how much power I was given, I really wasn't moving that fast. Meanwhile, I had some friends that were circling around me, moving further ahead of me. And it just made me go, you know what, now's the time to do this, especially as we close into the winter months. It allowed me more time to take apart my paramotor and install the new unit. So, how do you remove the unit? Well, it's actually pretty simple. It took me a little bit of time, but with the right tools, I was able to get the Atom off my actual frame. So, I fly the Parajet Maverick frame. So, it attaches to 4 different spots right here on my paramotor. It was as simple as just removing those bolts. Um, there's some little technical things that I had to get through as far as unhooking my fuel line, making sure my throttle cable, all that stuff was removed safely. But in the end, I was able to get that accomplished. So with the Atom 80 removed, now I have a backup engine that I can do a couple things with. If I decide to maybe later put it back on this frame, should, let's say, the Moster stop working for whatever reason or it's in repairs, I can still fly. Or eventually down the road, I'd like to get another frame and mount it back to that one. That way I have 2 paramotors, one with an Atom 80, which is more suited for long cross country, or for the Moster 185 that I'm currently mounted to the frame that I currently own. So some of the things that I ran across when I was removing the engine was pretty simple to overcome, but things that I need to be aware of as I mount the Moster back up. One of them is basically the weight differential. Now that there's no engine, it easily will top over. So right now I have a chair holding up my frame to make sure that it doesn't topple forward. I also have the fuel line pinched off up here. Make sure that I don't drip any fuel. I'm pretty confident that it won't, but just to be safe, I have that just dummy tied up under this area right here. Some other things too is I remove the brackets so that way the new Moster will mount directly. So we'll get more into depth as I get the Moster put on, but one of the things that I need to basically make that switch is I need the spacers, and that just mainly moves the propeller width away from the frame a little bit more than what's on the Atom 80. Also helps out with vibration, etc. People that are more into the engines would probably explain it better than I can, but either way, you need those spacers to be able to mount the unit there. So I have ordered those, so I'm waiting for those. They should be here any moment. Once I get that into play, I'll be able to mount the engine, rehook my fuel line, put my throttle cable on, put everything back together the way it needs to be, put my harness back in. But then I'll have to do one last test, which is my hang test. So what the hang test is basically I will have to hoist my paramotor up in the air, basically to make sure that as I'm hanging in the air, I'm doing about 15 degrees or so in the air to make sure everything's correct. Now, Moster and Parajet have recommended weight limit, so to speak. Basically, you put in what your weight is, and it will tell you where to start. So it'll give me a good idea where to start. The nice part about the Parajets is they have different mounting points on the bracket on the actual swing arms that you can just basically move back and forth. I've already flip-flopped them because of the torque difference. The Atom 80 spins at a different direction than the Moster does, so I had to flip those. That's already taken care of. I think I probably have it where it needs to be. However, I still want to do that hang test to make sure that it is in the correct locations. So to do the hang test, it's actually pretty simple if you have the right items. So I have a couple tow straps that are meant for towing different things, tie down, so to speak. So in my garage, I have a rafter that goes across, which will be perfect. I'll basically just loop the 2 tow straps over and then basically create almost like a little system to hold my unit in the air, in which case I can safely sit in it and figure out to make sure that I am at the correct degree that I need to be. So here you can see my disassembled Atom 80. Everything's been pulled apart. I got my extra props right here. And then basically my throttle cable that has been removed as well. Basically, once I get everything situated, I'll find a nice box or somewhere to keep this out of the elements and make sure it keeps it nice and safe. Here you can see my beautiful new Moster 185 that is going to be mounted to the frame right over here. So we're just, like I said, waiting for those spacers to arrive. A nice, exciting little bonus too is this is a 3-prop spinning Moster 185, so I should have a very, very smooth ride. So I am super excited. This is like Christmas for me to get this installed as well. All right, it's showtime. We got our parts. So we're gonna go ahead and get this installed and get this show on the road. So I am super, super, super excited. So let's get going. All right, let's get this open. All right, woo-hoo! Got some nice little treats. Thank you, Aviator. All right, so these are our mounting spacers for Parajet Maverick frame to be able to mount my Monster 185. So let's get these out. So as you can see, it is simply a bolt system with the appropriate spacer for the width as well. All right, so we got spacers in the right space. Next step is going to be mounting the motor itself to the frame. So right now I'm going to back some of the stuff out to make sure that I can easily get it up. All right, so since this is going to be probably the most heaviest, awkward part, I'm going to try to see if I can use a chair, something to basically put underneath here so I can safely set the motor with all that weight. That should work. So previously I made sure I uninstalled my brake line, so that's going to have to be put in, or I'm sorry, my pole starter will have to be refigured in. I also, just out of safety, have my spark plug unplugged. So all I'll have to do is put the cover back on and put my fuel line back on. So next thing is just getting these 4 spots to mount up properly. So we got the top half put in play. I won't fully tighten it because I think it's going to be kind of a car. Don't want to fully. Plus, I got to get the bottom spacers into place. All right, we're in business now. All right, we got the engine in on the frame itself. So at this point now, I'm just going to tighten it up similar to like you would a car tire. Basically, just crossing back and forth to make sure I don't have any twisted bits or missed threads or anything like that. But I am excited. It looks cool already, and we haven't even got the rest of it on. So we got a good portion of it done already. So next piece of the puzzle is we want to connect our fuel line, re-rig our pulley system for our starter cable. Thirdly, we'll also have to make sure that our starter cable, our throttle is installed correctly. All right, so let's do the fuel line. So this was just simply dummied up on this part right here. So this is simple as moving that. So here, we'll cut the twisty tie off. Make sure I'm aligned properly before I do this. Okay, that has been removed. Looks like no lasting damage. So what I'm going to need next is a needle nose pliers to basically pinch the fuel line. I don't know what you call this clamp done, but clamp will basically go down over the top of this. So first thing is going to work this on here. I want to make sure it goes snug as a bug. So fuel line now is fully on the actual intake, or whatever you want to call that, going into the car. So using our needle nose pliers, I am now going to pinch this little clamp and work its way down. This will help make sure that this line doesn't move itself on its own. So now we're good. I'm going to help let it spread itself back up, but give it a little bit of a push. All right, we are all set to now attach our pulley system for our pull start for our manual system. I made sure that I was unattached from my spark plug just to make sure nothing crazy were to happen, but everything is rerouted. Now it's simply on the Maverick frame. There's this little bracket here that we put everything back into. So it's as simple as just feeding it through. So we'll pull this bad boy up, and then as you can see, it goes right back in, and this locks it in place, and we're good to go. So the next piece of the puzzle is basically installing my throttle cable. So the throttle that I have is the original that came with the Moster. So our biggest thing will be to put on a new ground towards that. So something that I had purchased a while back was one of these kits. Let's see if I can get it back here. So I bought one of these kits off Amazon, kill switch issue before. It comes with everything you need. I bought the bigger pack because you never know when it's going to come in handy, and I'm glad I have it because I'm going to need another one as well. Also came with this crimping kit. So what we're going to do is create a crimp for this, attach it, but then also reroute this throttle system. So the previous throttle went through this. I don't like that because it made it to where I had to take apart the entire assembly just to get in there. So we're going to follow a similar suit. They did have an original, I guess you call them plastic bushings, that I can use to also help mitigate some of the vibrations. So we'll run that along the frame as is and down here as well. So we'll get that mounted and get that all set. All right, one thing I learned to kind of shorten this up but keep the length is to do what's called a pigtail. Basically, you just take it, wrap it around something like this. That will help shorten it, but keep it where it needs to be. So pigtail that, and now we have it grounded out. So we're good there. So next step is to run my throttle cable. We are all set now. I have my throttle set into place. We got our ground in place. We routed it through completely. So we are all set, zip tied to where we want it. I also made sure that any cabling was away from any moving parts as best as I could. Handyman secret weapon with the zip ties. Thirdly, it looks like we ran into a little bit of problem to where I don't have a crimp towards the end for my throttle cable. Ouch. So I ordered a barrel lock, should be in tomorrow. So I just made a simple knot here. That way we can at least just test it out. But tomorrow we'll put on a new barrel lock, which will be nice because we could also adjust it down the road. So we'll trim off what we don't need, put the barrel lock in place, which will then activate my throttle properly. We've also tested it out just to make sure. So our next and final pieces are to put our air filter on, our air box, and then finally mount our prop. And then lastly, we'll attach our harness, double check everything, go through a normal check out, and fire this bad boy up. So let's get this on. We are now on to our final step, which is installing our props. Once we get the prop in place, I'm going to go through a quick rundown, make sure everything is in its right spot, kind of like if I were to take off normally. And then we're going to take this bad boy outside and fire her up. There we have it. We are all set. All right, we are ready to test this bad boy out. I got everything set, primed, checked. One thing I did notice is that I was expecting this thing to be super heavy compared to what I was carrying with the Atom 80 because they always talk about the weight differential. However, I really didn't feel too much difference. I felt like what my Atom feels with a full tank of gas. And I would say the same thing with this one, but I mean, I'm only a couple liters in. So I know it'll be a little bit heavier, but it's not that crazy. So let's get this tried out. All right, we did it again, or got it reset. So basically I double knotted this pulley system. I think what happened is when I pulled forward, the knot that I put in there just simply came undone. So try this again. Safety first, and hook the spark plug. See if it's jamming out. So the issues that I ran into were quite easy to fix. The first one had to do with the pull start assembly. So on the Maverick frame, where the triangle is, it mounts to the right of one of the bars. I had to simply switch it to the left side of the bar, and that held it to a different angle and basically made it easier for me to pull start. Lastly, I think I flooded the engine, which was the biggest issue of why I couldn't start. But as you can see, I got all those issues solved. Clear prop. That's got power. All right, so we got that working. So I flooded the engine, or I flooded the carburetor. So that's what it was. So I cleared it out, took a little bit of tries, but my God, did that have some smooth power. Woo! After I solved the engine issues, all that remained was the simple hang test. So the hang test is pretty easy. As you can see, I used a ratchet system to basically suspend my paramotor from the rafters in my garage. The idea is you want to see where your hang point is in flight. You want to make sure that your hoop and your thrust are pushing at about a 15-degree angle. So what I did is rigged up the system, got in, checked my angle. I used a camera to kind of dummy look to make sure that everything was hanging properly. I did find that my angle was too sharp, so I basically moved my sets backwards on my swing arms and found the proper angle. So all in all, it was actually a pretty easy install, and we were able to overcome some of the adversities that I faced while I was putting it together. I want to give a really special thanks to my friend Andy for his guidance and his help as we put this together. He really was instrumental in making sure that I got everything that I needed and helped me get set up. So I really want to say thank you to Andy, and I am super excited to get in the air with everybody and try out this new engine. So with that, fly safe.